This is a metering valve. Supposedly this is going to turn this blast cabinet into a high performance machine. Let's see if it works. Thanks for watching. Let's get it sorted. Welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm restoring a 1964 Triumph TR4. I previously restored a Triumph Spitfire. One of the best tools I bought for the shop for that was a media blaster. Unfortunately, after several years of use and a move or two in there, the thing didn't quite survive, so I purchased another one. This one's a tabletop instead of a freestanding one. Much better quality, still from Harbor Freight, much better quality, but it still has the inherent flaws that the other one did as well, where the media gets sucked from a tube that goes down into the media pool from the top. And eventually what happens is you create a hole where the media doesn't fall back in, and instead of sucking media, you're sucking air. So I was in a couple days ago trying to blast some suspension parts in preparation for painting, and it would work for like 30 seconds and then stop sucking media. I'd shake the thing and it really wouldn't matter. Maybe I'm using crushed glass. Maybe if you had something that's a little heavier, it would kind of self-correct, but at least in this application, it wouldn't. So YouTube's your friend. I went out and researched a bunch of videos, and essentially what this is a metering valve. And what I'm going to do is bolt this into the bottom of the blast cabinet from the drain hole where you would drain the media from. And instead of the media being drained, it's all going to fall into here and collect. And then you're going to suck the media out of here, and it's entrained the way the rest of the system works. And supposedly, because the media is on top of this, provides a little bit of weight, and there's a little valve in here that's going to suck some air in to kind of give you some turbulent flow and keep the mix going. This is supposed to work a lot better and just completely transform the operation of those blast cabinets. This will work if you have the freestanding blast cabinet. They're all pretty much the same. No matter where you kind of look, they're all pretty much designed the same. So any variations that you have, you can modify at will. But as always, I'll give you a full parts list and everything like that. But hopefully this, along with the mod that I've previously done to my air compressor to keep nice, cool, dry air into that thing, this is going to enable me to blast much more efficiently than I did for the Spitfire, and much more efficiently than this thing is designed to do in the first place. So let's get over to the workbench here. I'll show you all the pieces, parts, and give you some more ideas, and we'll get into it. Here's all the pieces, parts I got. I picked all this stuff, or most of this stuff, up from Lowe's. This is all 1-inch size, except for the valve in here is it trims down to a 1/2 inch. So the way I envision this is I've got essentially what you would screw into a pole or something like that you would screw this to a deck or something to have a post go in. I'm going to mount this on the inside of the blast cabinet. So I'm going to have to drill 4 holes in the bottom of the blast cabinet. This is the only part that really is going to require any skill per se. And I've got the tube that's going to come up. It's going to screw in, pass through the hole. The hole in the bottom of the blast cabinet, at least mine, is 1 inch and an eighth. So that should fit through with no problem. At least I hope so. If I have to wound that out a little bit, that's fine. I've got some rubber matting, and I'm going to put some rubber matting in here to just provide a seal. You could probably use silicone too. I do have some of that. I might put a little bead around the outside of it, but hopefully the rubber matting will take. So now that's going to penetrate through the bottom and sit in the bottom of the cabinet like that. And then I've got a 1-inch elbow, or excuse me, a T-junction. That's going to screw in like this. In the bottom of that, I've got a 1-inch plug, and that's so that I can drain the media out, since I'm plugging up the hole that I would normally drain the media from. Then I've got a little extension pipe. Now this is a 3-inch pipe, this is a 2-inch pipe. If I need to swap these out, I don't see a reason why I couldn't do that. So then that 3-inch pipe goes in there. I've got another T-junction, so it's a 1x1, but coming out the top of this one is a 1/2 inch instead of a 1 inch. So that's going to be on like this. Then a little 1/2 inch male to male here. And then the valve, the ball valve, which is probably the single most expensive part of this whole thing. That's going to go in like that, as long as I can get it started here. And that allows me to suck some air in and provide some turbulent flow. And then a reducer, 1 inch to a 1/2 inch reducer. And then a 1/2 inch to a barbed fitting for a 5/8 inch air hose. And at least for my blaster, that's a 5/8 inch thing. So now I've got Tygon tubing. I like the Tygon tubing with the braided fiberglass string in there. One end's going to go into here. Then I'll have to drill another hole into the back of the blast cabinet so this can penetrate into that, and then that will connect up to the gun, and then essentially it's the same thing after that. Like I said, the hardest part or the trickiest part is drilling holes, so I'm going to line these holes up first, make sure all that stuff fits, and then get that squared away. I'll bring it over to the blast cabinet and see how that's going to translate. So you can see down there, that's the hole that essentially this round pipe thingy is going to fit on. Now that looks actually a little bit smaller than the diameter of that fitting, so I'm probably going to have to sand that down. But here's the gun and all of its glory. Get that out of your way here. So you can see this tube here, and this hose connects to that tube and it goes down and it just sits in there. Maybe the ankle could be different, maybe the length could be different. For whatever reason, it just wasn't, it was developing a hole here and just wasn't sucking at all. So instead of this being connected here, I'm just going to take this off and it's going to go away, and I'm going to drill another hole. This is my high pressure air supply. I'm going to drill another hole into here, and that's where that Tygon tubing is going to come in, and the gun is going to be attached to that, and hopefully that's going to give me a little bit more flexibility and also a little bit more ease of use. Obviously, this cabinet's not cheap, a couple $100, so I don't want to make anything. I want to be able to set everything back to the way it was. I don't mind putting 4 screw holes down there because I can always plug them with something, but I want to try to minimize the, not being able to reverse what I'm going to do. The other problem you can see is the thing sits on top of a cabinet. It's not freestanding, so 1, I don't have access to the bottom, and 2, it doesn't stick up high enough, I don't think, to allow all of the clearance that I need for this contraption here. So I'm going to have to use wood stilts or something to kind of bolster this thing up a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of play that by ear. That'll be temporary until 1, it works fine. I don't need to make it permanent, or until I can figure out a better way to kind of prop this thing up. So let's get this thing manhandled here. We'll get it on its back or on its side or something, and we'll see how the stuff starts fitting up. So a little change of plans already. I'm in the bottom here, and this is obviously where the media is going to come out. Now that hole will not take the pipe, so I can either round that hole out, or what I've decided to do instead, at least temporarily, is come from the bottom here. So I'm going to mount the flange like that and screw the pipe into here, and I think it'll still fall in. It's tapered, so it's going to give it a relatively smooth. This portion here is tapered, so it'll give it a relatively smooth fall. I am also going to put a piece of rubber underneath of that to hopefully give me some seal, because really all I'm concerned with is here, and also some silicone on there. So, and this also, I don't have to cut the flange down to do this. So this is definitely a more convenient spot. Whether or not it's going to be as effective, I'm not sure, but we're going to find out. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing marked and then drilled with 1/4-inch holes. We're going to go ahead, get this thing lined up right here. Just going to eyeball it. Since the pipe is not going to really penetrate, I'm not that concerned about it being perfectly straight or centered. I want the holes as good as I can get them, obviously, so I don't have slop in there. I want the holes as centered up. These are 1/4-inch. I want them to be exactly a 1/4-inch, because I want to minimize, obviously, the holes that I've got in the cabinet. But I'm not too concerned, so we'll go ahead and mark them. And we'll start with a small bit first to get the holes drilled through and started. So I can have some guide holes. Step up to the 1/4-inch. So that should take care of that. Get the flange up here, make sure I didn't screw my holes up. All right, so it looks like that's going to work just fine. So now we're going to get the piece of rubber. I want to get this siliconed in here. Sorry, I'm off camera. Get this silicone, put the piece of rubber down. Probably put a little bit of silicone around here, around the rubber, just to get it sealed. And then it should be good. I'm not really worried. It's all gravity, right? This thing's not going to be under pressure at all down here. So it's just stuff falling in. I'm not really worried about a whole lot of leakage. So let me get the rubber piece, get some silicone, and we should be good. So as you can see, I got the thing started here. We'll go from the inside now. I've got flat washers and captive nuts. That's in there, should be okay. Might take a little bit more silicone on the corners here. The rubber's kind of folding down. So I might take a little bit more silicone and just kind of fill those spots. You probably couldn't see it, but the silicone was leaking out around the screws, which I like because now I know that where probably the most likely place for it to leak, I think, is going to be where those screw holes are. So now I know that those are going to be full. So that was a convenient but unintended thing there. So everything looks good there. Now we'll get in the little down pipe here. I'm gonna go grab that. Most of the way finished here. Obviously I still have the hose to connect, and I'll deal with that in a second. A couple things to point out. One, I did put Teflon tape on everything. Again, I don't expect a lot of leakage here because it's just gravity fed, but it is real fine, especially the glass. So, you know, this stuff tends to leak out places you don't expect it to because it's a powder, essentially. The other thing to watch out for, and I got totally lucky with this, I had mentioned that this pipe, I just kind of guessed the delta here between and how much offset I would get, right? I want to minimize how deep this goes because I'm going to have to stand this thing up on wooden stilts like I had mentioned. Well, this was a 1 inch by 2 inch, a 2 inch length. I think maybe 3. I think it was 3. So the 1 by 3 here gave me enough room to clear the valve. So this valve, you can put it on in either direction, but you need to put it on to make sure that when you open it, you don't open it up, you open it down. So I had to take the hand wheel off to mount it, and that was obviously easy, and then put the hand wheel back on, and then it opens on the way down. So this is going to be just cracked for the operation. That's something we'll fine tune as we operate, but you want to make sure that you give yourself enough distance between the bottom of the cabinet and this hand wheel. Now I got totally lucky with that. I was going to buy a shorter one, but I'm like, no, I think I'll have enough wood laying around. I'll tilt it up and maybe go back if I have to. So 1 by 3 here, a 1 by 4 here, and then the various elbows and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'll put a list in the description of all the pieces, parts I used for this. So this thing sticks out a good 3 or 4 inches from the bottom of the cabinet, but eyeballing it here, I got a 4 by 4 eyeballing it here. I've got about the ½ inch distance of clearance to 1 inch. So that's good. It doesn't need to be really any more than that. So what I'll do is I'll be able to put a 4 by 4 here, a 4 by 4 here, one on this side, and then maybe 2 pieces here because I need to be able to clear that hose. And that's really the last thing I need to do is clear that hose. So we'll get the hose routed around, and they got to drill a hole in the back of the cabinet so the hose can come back inside. And hopefully I've got a rubber grommet laying around somewhere. I think I have some left over from the car, and I'll be able to get the hose into the cabinet in a relatively sealed manner, and that'll work for that. I am going to pull the pickup tube out, the old one, since I'm pretty confident this is going to work now, and then seal that back up with silicone or something so that I don't get a bunch of leakage out of those things. And then we'll be ready to get this thing flipped over, get it on the wood, and get the final Tygon hose in there. A little bit better view of the whole contraption for you. Again, hose is going to come out here. This is going to suck just air. All your media is going to come down here, go out. Got the Tygon hose in. I did not have a grommet, unfortunately. So right now it's just piped in through the metal, so it's going to leak. The Tygon is pretty stiff. I didn't think it was going to be quite so stiff. I have a feeling that I'm not going to be able to use it, and unfortunately I had to cut it. But I think it's going to be a little too stiff to not make me get all upset with having to manhandle it and everything like that. But it's done, so showing to you low, and probably not going to be able to see too well. But there's the stuff under there. You can see it kind of hanging down. You could reach the valve. Obviously, the ends are open, or else it wouldn't work for me because I wouldn't be able to reach the valve. So we're going to go ahead and put some media in it, give it a shot, see what happens. So yeah, this Tygon is not going to work. I'm already can tell just trying to move it out of my way. So we've got the media here. We're going to go ahead, put a couple cupfuls in it. Another advantage of this, supposedly, is that you don't have to use as much media. But I'm still going to want enough in here, right? I'm going to have to fill the hose all the way. So I need enough for that. We'll try that right there. I don't know how many, a couple pounds of it. One other thing that I picked up to help save my vacuum cleaner, picked up a Harbor Freight cyclone separator. And essentially what this does is this will get connected between the vacuum cleaner and the blast cabinet, and it just uses centrifugal force and throws all the heavy stuff out to the outside here, and it's supposed to dump into this bucket. Now the glass bead is pretty light, so I'm not sure how well this is going to work. It's you know, this is normally used, I think, in like woodworking shops and stuff like that, but eventually, and I do remember this from running the other sandblasting cabinet when I was doing the Spitfire, that eventually the filter in the vacuum cleaner just totally clogs up and you can't get any suction, and it is really nice to be able to have that suction. These don't have a real great reputation. They're pretty cheap and pretty flimsy. Based on a couple of the reviews that I watched, it looks like they've already made some improvements where they have a seal now, where before you were just bolting this down, and the lid, which I have on the workbench, I'll show you here in a second, the lid was really, really flimsy. This lid seems to be a little bit harder plastic. Not a whole lot to it, but you do have to read the directions because it is important which hose gets connected to which port as far as the suction and the stream or the path of a flow here. So I'm just going to put it together real quick. This is not obviously the intent of the video. So I'll get this all together and then see how it goes. So there's the setup for the Cyclone out of the vacuum, or I should say out of the blaster unit into the side of the Cyclone where it should spin out, right? Because you want, if you think about it, it's obvious how it works. So you've got your particulate that comes into here and it goes into the outside, and that starts the spin, right? As it comes around and whips around like this. This center tube for the vacuum cleaner actually penetrates down in here a little bit. So you spin the air up that's coming in, and the centrifugal force forces all the heavier stuff to the outside, and then outside kind of stuff sticks to the outer wall, and gravity takes over and just sucks it down. And because the vacuum cleaner doesn't take a suction until closer to a little bit down here, it's hopefully far enough away from that stuff and it's spun up enough to throw it out. And it should all fall into the bucket, and then just clean air is going into the vacuum. I've heard that the buckets collapse and this thing is wobbly. Now this is a lot stiffer, just putting it together, than some of the videos that I saw. As soon as the guys, it must be the older models, as soon as they'd put this thing on and connect, the weight of the hose from the vacuum cleaner would just make the thing lean over. Again, this is more to save the filter in the vacuum cleaner, so I don't have to stop and clean it every time. If I get lucky and can recover some media, great. I'm not really concerned too much about that. That's a 25-pound bucket. That really isn't that incredibly expensive. So I got the air hooked up, and I'm going to give it a shot. I got two pieces in there from the frame that I tried to blast the other day, and that just weren't working. So we'll go ahead and hook the light up and get going here, and I'll show you those pieces real quick. And unfortunately, again, because this blast cabinet is not real easy to film because of all the dust and everything, I'm not sure how affected it's going to be at showing you what I'm doing, but hopefully you'll get an idea. So let me show you these pieces real quick. So these are the two pieces that I'm doing. The top one has been hit with the rust converter, and the bottom one I tried to do and was having the problems with. So we're going to go ahead and go to town on these. I've got the threads taped off to protect them. The air valve, down in the metering valve, that is not open yet. So I'm not real sure how much to open that. I'm just going to crack it, and then we'll give it to test here. All right, got my earmuffs on before I turn the vacuum on. I'm just going to kind of give this a couple shots here. See if I can get media flowing. Yeah, this hose is not going to work. Holy cow, that's stiff. Sorry about that. All right, well, that's not working at all. Absolutely no media in the tube. Maybe if I open the air valve more, I'm going to be upset this doesn't work. Oh, there we go. So you probably can't see it, but the tube is definitely full of media. So obviously that air valve does make a difference. We're going to open it up a little bit more. And I'm also keeping an eye on the bottom here, and it doesn't appear that the bottom is emptying out. Obviously you want to keep an amount of stuff on there. So go ahead and turn the vacuum on. All right, let's see what happens. So that seemed to work all right. The never lost suction on it. I think that air valve is going to be, adjustments to that air valve are going to make a difference. There is a divot in the bottom here where the media has kind of started to cave in a little bit. The only, what I don't know is how much medium I actually loosen through the bucket, so I'm going to take the bucket lid off. I'll show you that, see if the thing even worked, the cyclone separator. But I definitely think this metering valve worked. So let's check out that cyclone separator, just kind of give an answer on that, and we'll wrap this up. So again, this is not a before and after with the vacuum. The inside of that vacuum is such a hot mess that you wouldn't be able to tell anybody if it was working or not. There is dust up here, so it's not going to be 100%, obviously. But true test is going to be what's in the bottom of this bucket, I think. All right, well, there's definitely stuff in there, and I had to have blasted more media than that, so I don't think this is going to be 100%. So only time will tell. This stuff is pretty light. I don't expect it to be great. So we'll see. We'll do some other stuff and get a little bit more long term and see if it was really worth the 40 bucks or not. All right, everybody, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Do that. It made a big difference. I never lost media once. It's worth a little bit of hassle that it takes to do it. The cyclone separator, not so sure. I'm not so sure that it lends itself to the use in this case. It's probably effective in other cases, sawdust and stuff, but probably not in this case. As a side note, the air compressor modification that I did to try to remove the moisture, that's been working great. I think I've run it enough now that I'm confident that that's effective. I didn't notice once moisture getting on the metal piece that I was cleaning, which I've noticed in the past, but not since then. So again, product or all the pieces, parts are in the description down below. Now that it's warm enough in here, I got the compressor taken care of, got the blast cabinet taken care of. Now it's time to start cleaning the suspension parts of my Triumph TR4, getting stuff painted, and hopefully slowly but surely getting the frame and chassis repopulated with parts. So on the upward swing, hopefully, towards getting this car on a reassembly phase versus disassembly phase. So thanks again for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.